Hi, this is Travis in the Uncanny Valley. I'm going to try this again. Okay, so I'm going to try and talk about conflict and specifically conflict resolution with someone. I'll just sum up what it turned into an 8-minute video. I'll just say someone like myself. Um, while I know that I am I am well equipped, I'm tooled appropriately for teasing out all the steps in a process and reorganizing them for efficiency and recognizing all the steps. Sometimes I'll ask someone, sometimes at work, what all's involved in that, and they'll say this, and this, and then you really look at it and examine. Uh, and the other recently, I did that to a process, and there were actually I think 13 steps, and so that's kind of the reason I say that is because that's kind of what I'm doing here. Like, I don't know that the typical person would need all of these steps. Um, excuse me, but I do. So I'm just trying to be real with you. These aren't things that I had to come up with and like add in to fill in for hypotheticals. Like, these are actually things that I need in a a close personal relationship. So, you know, look at it like a recipe for something. You can, oh, I don't like that, I can skip that, that's unnecessary, whatever. But if you were to use this, I think it's maybe more nuanced than the average person might need, because maybe it's I think this is because of my insecurities that are based on my cognitive deficiencies in understanding how social interactions are supposed to naturally happen, because I did not pick up uh, on these things for the first few decades of my life, and um, I'm realizing that I have been reactive because of those insecurities, and so I'm trying to, as I'm able to recognize what was happening in conflict, um, you know, being told what's happening to you isn't, isn't likely to be helpful. But uh, if you're asked what's happening, like, so if I'm asked, what's going on, what are you feeling, like, that's a situation where it's healthy and conducive to uh, sharing what's going on. So this is this is like this is kind of an exhaustive, and I'm sure for the typical person, an exhausting process. But yeah, I'm just gonna try and I'm gonna try and break down how I might uh, best respond to a criticism or a cluster of criticisms from a neurotypical person. Um, yeah, so here goes. Okay. Um, First, I benefit from being asked, um, "Hey, is this a good time um, to go over something?" Because uh, I have a criticism, and that's key. Like, criticism is not a negative thing in my eyes. The thing around it is when it's acted as if it's not a criticism, because criticism carries a negative connotation. So, like, just uh, you know, be honest and ask if it's a good time, and then um, like, the answer needs to be yes, like, for me, and then or if it's not, then don't proceed. with this process. Next, I need it to be a singular criticism. If this is a cluster of uh, 4 different things that I'm doing that you maybe even correctly understand them to be closely linked, um, like that's going to have to be brief because I need it to be a single criticism, and that's not to be controlling. That's for processing reasons. Um, and then so, and if it can't be kept to a single criticism, with reminders, like let's stick to one thing. Like if that's not something that's capable of happening, then do not proceed. I mean, that's a step. Like that's a qualifier. Like all these steps are qualifiers. It's, can we do this? Okay, then you can proceed. If not, then do not proceed. And like for me, these things need to be cleared up before it starts. Like all of these things need to be checked off that they can happen, or they're all, each of them individually has veto power over the discussion even happening. Because if it can't be safe, then it shouldn't take place yet. So, okay, time limit, yeah, or do not proceed. I need to confirm that, even within that, say we're going to say we can do this for 20 minutes, but that's like all I think I got in me, or 30 minutes, or whatever it is. I just can't go on for 2 hours of 5 related things that I do that are annoying. Like I do lots of annoying things, but trust me, I believe that. But like, I need it to be a thing for a time period, and even within that time period, I need to confirm that like I will be able to take a break at a moment's notice. There's times where like something is said, and I just need a moment to process that sentence because it's I just do for lots of reasons that I won't get into here. And then if that can be confirmed that I can take a break at a moment's notice, like hold on, stop, let me hear this, let me think about that, and then I might repeat it back out loud to make sure I'm processing the words that were actually spoken to me, because sometimes when I speak them back in that way, um, a thing might be clarified or corrected or edited, and that can be helpful too. It's like, oh, okay, oh, so I see we're saying this. Okay, let me think about that for a minute. Um, and if not, if that can't happen, then do not proceed. Okay, I need to ask for and receive acknowledgement that I'll be permitted to to at least at the end of hearing the problem, uh, that I'll be permitted to do my best attempt at active listening. Um, and that might even be a good time to give the reminder that even my best attempt at active listening, because I'm likely processing what you're saying differently than you're saying it. Um, that's likely to be upsetting or frustrating to listen to, but it's often specifically those discrepancies between what's being said and what's being uh, you know echoed back uh, through active listening. It's sometimes those discrepancies where the base conflict gets blown out of proportion because the initial uh, understanding of the problem wasn't properly understood. Um, but yeah, but I mean, even when it's properly understood, the way I'm repeating it back is very often I might be putting the focus on the wrong parts of the sentence or different parts of what I heard, and so that's very likely to be frustrating. Uh, yeah, and if that can't um, be understood and agreed that yes, I can do active listening, and yes, you understand that my best effort will possibly be frustrating, and that's not an intentional effort on my part. That's just a byproduct of the difference of processing. That's not something you're doing. That's not something I'm doing. It's the delta. It's the difference therein that is frustrating to both of us in this situation. And if that can't be all agreed to for whatever reason, then do not proceed. Um, I need to remind the neurotypical person that's bringing the criticism to me or whatever the conflict is, like that I will likely need to discuss acceptable alternatives because and this happens in personal relationships and this happens at work. You know, when someone brings something to my attention and that they need something to be done differently, like I need to flesh out like that I understand what it is you want done and like explore with you like how that's going to look in a very practical way because that discussing the alternatives has to allow for me to ask questions because if I can't ask questions without that coming off as I'm challenging you or challenging the idea, if there's a lot of pushback there that escalates this uh, to be unhealthy, then do not proceed. um, okay, and this might be sound like a distinction without a difference, but I promise you this is a separate point. I need to remind the neurotypical person that I will likely need to discuss how the acceptable alternatives are acceptable, like and why the other way was not. Because just knowing that you don't like this process or this thing that I do as a person, and that you want these other things done, and now I understand why. Like I need to understand why or how that is that that thing is acceptable because this is all me working towards getting to the root of what was upsetting about it in the first place. And if I can't do that, then you know this, do not proceed. And that's not like my boundary, like do not proceed. That's like because I these are needs, like you shouldn't want to proceed. Like because like these are what I need to do to be able to uh to be able to do this in a mature and healthy way. And it might seem very extra and very superfluous to just what could otherwise be a very simple just hey, I need you to stop doing this and do this. Hey, when we do this process, I need you to do this process instead. Like, I do need to understand your motivations and the logic behind it so that I can um, understand the root of it. Anyways, if that can't happen, do not proceed. Um, okay, so this is a huge one. This is oh man, I need explicit reassurance. You know, if we're in uh, I need explicit reassurance that this conversation, not the topic, not the topic or the behavior, um, is an existential threat. Like lots of behaviors can be an existential threat to the the relationship, whether it's a work relationship or a social relationship or a romantic relationship. But I need to know that the conversation itself that we're trying to have isn't so happening in such an unhealthy way that the conversation is an existential threat. Because if it is, then the stakes are too high. This should be revisited when the conversation can be done in a place of safety as opposed to a place of a threat. Whereas the conversation is a place of safety as opposed to the conversation itself. How the conversation goes, rather, is is a threat. So the conversation needs to be a neutral, safe forum for figuring this out, because the issue or the behavior should be what we are discussing and what is a potential threat to the relationship, working relationship or otherwise. But like, if yeah, if I'm at work and I'm expected to learn how to do a thing, and I know that in training for this thing that I've never done before in my life, that if I mess up in the training, that I will be fired or I could be fired, then I don't want to do that. I won't take on that job because like you're telling me the stakes are way too high for for me to do this. Like, how about we talk about this tomorrow when we've thought about this a little more, and that we both agree that it's not reasonable to fire me for something that I'm telling you I've never done before in my life and I'm willing to learn how to do. But um, the act of learning, if the act of learning is is something that can end that working relationship, then the stakes are too high, and that's not a healthy way to have uh, conflict. So, and if that reassurance can't happen, then do not proceed. Okay. Um, I need this is this is very specific to me, but I need to be able to have written down for me, or to be able to be the one to write down what the takeaways are, or if it's a process, what the steps of the process are. And you might say, well, step one's this, step two's this, step three's this, and I might need to break that down into 8 steps because of what I'm understanding uh, of the process. But so if you're writing it down for me, I might have questions and want to make sure that I'm understanding the process in light of the way that you're writing down the steps. If I'm the one that's just permitted to write down the steps or the desired behavior, like, um, then I'm going to have questions. I want to make sure that, because this didn't come natural to me, because, like in a relationship, because this thing didn't come natural to me, and I didn't pick up on this social skill, or, um, you know, cognitively, like I couldn't have processed what I was witnessing, um, or at work or something, like, I just never learned the software. Like I have to be able to learn it in a safe environment. And if not, then this conflict or this issue, this struggle, should not proceed until this can be done in a safe uh, environment. Okay, next would be to afterwards. This is near the end. I would like for us to, both parties, to verbally affirm, like, that while this was likely very exhausting, that it was worthwhile and appreciated. That if after doing my best in the above process, like, if you're going to be frustrated at me because of the difficulty of the process, the process is kind of like the required way to reprogram me. So like if that process is going to uh, help you feel like you are legitimately resenting me for needing a process, then do not proceed. Like, I need to know that you're going to be able to, regardless of how difficult this is, not resent me for it or be angry at me because this is happening. Like, we're going into this knowingly. One thing I could do is to potentially alleviate uh, this clash of um, standards or expectations would be to provide definitions or explanations for why and what I'm doing. Like it's reasonable that um, my actions and thoughts are misunderstood and mischaracterized and misinterpreted as hostility um, in this process. But this is avoidable if my motivations and goals can be believed, and maybe knowing the way that I do that could help towards that end. And that I should point out that while these needs I have might feel uh, challenging, they're just the byproduct of my systematic approach. Like, I need a systematic approach um, so that I can know what we're doing. Well, just so I can know what we're doing. Like, everything I've listed that's followed up by a or do not proceed, like, that's a checkbox. Like, that's my system. So if this systematic approach shouldn't be misunderstood uh, as thinking that I'm the only party with needs. It's just that your needs are likely met in most interactions you have because the other party, the other person, naturally knows how to do that and how to navigate that situation. So just because your needs are so uh, taken for granted in most of your interactions, that's not to say that they're not needs. Um, it just might feel more validating to be upset when those needs aren't met. Um, so my needs, that I'm able to articulate them in this way, um, you know, is not a does not create an asymmetrical situation. It's just, if you're able to provide what your needs are, we can compile them, and both of us can have our needs met in a conflict. But this is kind of a double empathy issue where, yeah, both sides have needs, and this right here that I'm doing, this is my good faith attempt to articulate my needs. Um, I'm more than happy to mesh these with your needs. Uh, if it's a good faith effort, um, not just a snarky response to this, which may seem like a convoluted process. But if it's a genuine, list of needs that we can figure out how uh, to do it, like, that's my anxious attachment style would get excited about that. Like, yeah, we can work through conflict, and like, you're actually showing that you're invested in the relationship by coming up with, you know, figuring out what your needs are, and then coming up with a list, and then willing to work through with me through this to figure out how to meet both of our needs. That's like that makes me happy. So yeah, I mean, through that, like, the conflict can be resolved in the best possible way, and that's just, to me, that's just awesome. So this has been me being really vulnerable and things that uh, I don't know that most people need. So take it for what it is. Um, I'm meaning to just figure out um, why I have been so uh, unhealthy and reactive in conflict, and it's because um, I didn't largely didn't have any of those things because I didn't know I needed them, and because I needed them because there was a mismatch of needs. Most of those aren't a need uh, that one person's getting met and I'm just not getting met. I mean, those needs are because there is an imbalance, an asymmetrical aspect um, to the needs. So yeah, I'm trying to be less reactive and more present. Especially like when I get criticism, like rather than just kind of stepping back and taking a box of stuff that addresses it and just like throwing it and being like, here's everything I have that I know of that addresses the thing that you're criticizing. Um, that rightfully seemed very defensive because I was so eagerly and willingly spewing all of that uh, unedited um, and often confusing and rough draft and sometimes hurtful data. Um, it was a very, very, very unhealthy process because I didn't know honestly that I'm allowed to have needs. I'm allowed to articulate those needs and I'm allowed to create boundaries based on those needs. So I'm learning how to do that and it's really helping. So yeah, maybe say, do any of those sound unreasonable to you? Because honestly, like I really give them a lot of thought, and like what helps me think of a thing that's reasonable is that like I understand things. I don't have empathy. I understand things through sympathy. So it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Like when I hear it, like as a concept, I see it mirrored against itself, and it's like, yeah, like that seems fair. So like both sides should be able to ask for that. That seems like a fair request. But do any of them not seem fair to you, or um, do you have other things that you think would could be added to that list to make it healthier? Because I really this is a very genuine, raw thing I'm trying to do better at. So please, if you see something that could be improved on, let me know.